The will in achieving objectives, patience and action versus procrastination and evasion. The human being of Earth grows up often confused due to the stupendous amounts of belief sprouted in the very fabric of society in practically every range, from the pollution of the environment, mass propaganda, populism, traditional religious beliefs, but also newfound and subsprout cults and beliefs, which politics play a huge role in bringing divisiveness and separation of the peoples. The Earth human is generally confused and doesn't even know the basic meaning of life, thinking it to be some sort of grand mystery and journey, which is a sad shame, because her basic creational right to evolve in consciousness has been stripped from her thanks to the belief-based influence of world she is born into. The Earth human grows up in families with parents who have no idea how to even be adults, let alone raise children, leading to confused thinking, and monstrous deviations have degenerated humanities. How then can the human being know of even an iota of truth if she is constantly bombarded with belief from almost every sector of life? Astrology, numerology, Kabbalah, and other fortune tellers, etc., are no exception to this rule, because most of these fields are still very primitive and do not account to a great deal of accuracy. Therefore, the current trends of astrology and all other related and similar fields amounts to nothing more than beliefs, and when these beliefs are confirmed by the misled starry-eyed believers, then it only goes to confirm further delusion sprouted from the collective belief mass thinking. The Earth human is generally so trapped in this world of belief that it is extremely difficult, and frankly, impossible for her to be freed of all influences without the proper education which relates to the true teaching of the Spirit, the true teaching of life, creational teaching, including material from academia, but in general, simply the truth or truth teaching based on the logic of the eternal imperishable truth. Again and again, this is truly the human being's only defense against the muddled, dizzy world she is born into, and if she truly wants to sustain, protect and improve her life, then it can only come through this realization that she must turn to reality and to the truth, and never can she ever profit any lasting success from any belief form of any kind. Belief is trap against true logic and true reason. Belief is blindness. It is ignorance. It is the method of the unthinking, unaware human being who does not use their brain. The universe is completely logical, and anything that does not fall into logic is therefore a lie, a belief, an untruth, or the engaging human being simply does not understand the matter yet. Knowledge is light, therefore is an aphorism. If the human being were to walk into a pitch-black room, she would have a natural, instinctual fear, which should not be confused with irrational fear, because instinctual fear, in this context, refers to that solely of ignorance or lack of knowledge. Therefore, in a dark room, the human being cannot see with his physical eyes, but when she flips the light switch, light comes, and thus, she gains awareness of his surroundings. Peace naturally flows over the human being when she comes to absolute certainty in knowledge. Absolute certainty in knowledge is therefore the arrival point of wisdom, because wisdom is the security that the human being searches for. Even in discovery of the truth, creation itself poses the ultimate wisdom, in all its learning and all its being. The human being therefore gains certainty and light. She gains peace, truth, and her feet are planted on certain ground. However, the necessary journey to the light often consists of many dark turns and corners, and the challenges, obstacles, mistakes, setbacks and errors can truly be of enormous pain, suffering and loss. However, the human being should know that the will in achieving objectives is absolutely mandatory if she is to progress through her woes and to inevitably overcome it. The silly, misled, over-positive idea that the life should be a hedonistic, live it up with all comforts, no problems, no challenges and no obstacles remains thoughts of pure ignorance and pure evil. Truly, had there been no challenges, obstacles, mistakes, setbacks, errors, hardships, sufferings and so forth, then no progress can be made, and thus, no evolution, success, achievement, resolution, hitting the finish line, etc. can ever come about, because the life would be one big joke. Truly, such stupid thinking remains thinking of positively degenerated human beings who subscribe to the erroneous belief philosophies that they should go out of their way to avoid hardships, difficult conversations, awkwardness, pains, difficulties, and so forth, because due to their stupid, ignorant, self-destructive belief of over-positive delusion, they believe that challenges, obstacles and problems are the work of that which is ungood, that which is somehow bad, terrible, and not in accordance with living supposedly well and healthy. These are the same fools who are the first to suffer the material decay of age, because such human beings, in their inactivity, fail time and time again to confront the truth of reality, that is to say, the law of bipolarity, positive and negative, which works to forge the law of union. However, the law of union cannot in any wise be formed without the law of two, respectively, the law of bipolarity, because positive and negative are inherent to each other as two sides of the same coin. Earthlings have been taught to be extremists, completely disregarding this natural creational law for the sake of their stupid, degenerate and extremist beliefs, to quickly sway from one end to another, neglecting the other side of the coin with great hatred. The positively deluded was previously mentioned. However, the negatively deluded also exist, which also goes to confirm the unchangeable law of two, respectively, the law of bipolarity. Therefore, on the other side of the positively degenerated deluded also exists the negatively degenerated deluded who, in their extreme nihilism, believe that life is all a suffering and there is no meaning to purpose and existence. In their completely illogical thinking, such human beings believe that life is somehow all about existing to be in pain and pain is eternal, and that somehow, the universe is cruel, violent, uncaring, unable, randomly chaotically existing, without shape, without order, and so, such people, unbeknownst to themselves, fulfill the same role as their positively deluded counterparts, simply in a different light. Such thinking on both extremes remains that of primitive, misled creatures and completely irrational, illogical thinking that in no way or wise corresponds to even an iota of truth, because in the truthly truth, these ideas, concepts, philosophies, beliefs, methodologies of life, etc. remains that of only human thinking ideas and concepts which never and never can ever hold a candle to the truthly truth, which stands far and impenetrably above man's thinking. The truthly truth, respectively, the absolute truth, is that the creation, and all creations have creation, are in absolute bounded existence to its governing laws, because without these laws of reality, nothing can be. Therefore, the creational laws of reality, including the mentioned laws of bipolarity, union, etc., are effectively neutral logic, respectively, neutral love, and thus gives the human being the complete freedom to wield this power for the effective good, positive, equalized and continued evolution, or for the misled, illogical, irrational, belief, unchristianal, life. Yet this neutral logic, respectively, neutral love or neutral universal logic, in no wise corresponds to some sort of cruel, uncaring, apathetic notion, because again, such ideas are only human concepts. The universe has laid out the framework for human beings to take up and use for the good of themselves, mankind, the fauna and flora, and truly the whole rest of the universe, and if she comes to realization of this absolute unchangeable truth, then she will find an endless, boundless joy which enables and confirms the statement that the wisdom of the creation within the human being is infinitely greater than any struggle. So, it is without an exception that the creative laws and recommendations can be applied to the life at any point in any time in conscious realization, because even without man's awareness of the laws of reality, they are still at work. However, Consciousness is realization and awareness, and therefore, consciousness evolution, which is the purpose of the material life, confirms this absolute truth, that man was designed to become increasingly aware and thus wield the nature of reality and conscious awareness. In the material realm of being, the laws of creation often requires patience to be seen, observed and wielded, but time and time again the human being rushes ahead, neglecting the reality of these laws. How then can the human being be patient if she doesn't even understand how the process works? As Tansara mentioned, patience is also trusting the process of cause and effect, and that by not losing self-control and being consistent the best outcome will bloom into time. The value of patience can only be realized when the human being comes to conscious awareness that it is not only the ability to deal with setback, delay, hardship, misery and the like without losing the self, but also to watch the beauty of the creational logic, creative laws, unfolding. And the more the human being pays heed to the unfolding laws of creation from the causes she put forth, respectively, if she consciously awaits seeing the results of her actions, then she, once the objective is achieved, will find themselves, in aphorism, as turning on the light switch in a dark room. She, even after going through the darkness, is awarded the beauty of life and the security of knowing what is. And if she knows what is, then she knows what was, what has, and what will be. Essentially, this is the stage a human being can truly consider themselves a spiritual human being, although this in itself is quite a primitive term, because the human being is truly and simply a natural human being, through the conscious living out of creational law, logic. Truly, such human beings can be considered conscious conduits of creation, and truly, she shines like the radiance of the creative law because she confirms the creative law in her existence by observing and applying the logic of creation. However, never and never can this be accredited to belief or forming collective belief, because in the absolute truth, no belief whatsoever is necessary because the laws of the creative reality is already evident in not just the nature such as the fauna and flora, but from the very basic things such as breathing. Truly, the human being simply has to learn to become observant to this truth, because in no way, shape or form is any belief, even the slightest, required for the human being to come to the absolute realization of the truth. She simply has to observe and then apply what she has observed in nature, and naturally, over the course of time, the human being will develop absolute unshakable certainty because she has built their house, consciousness, on absolutely firm ground, unlike belief, which is subject to death, change and inevitable eradication. But now more must be explained in regards to the differences between patience and action versus procrastination and evasion, and also, patience versus impatience, a topic which is massively misunderstood and barely spoken of beyond the belief-based factors of be patient. The human being can never be patient simply from hearing the words be patient or by reading about the so-called value of patience if she hasn't a clue why they should be patient. It is therefore impossible, no matter how much advice is given, that the human being can develop patience without going through the necessary experiences. Patience is vastly misunderstood by terrestrial humanity, and there are of course the over-positively deluded who believe that patience inevitably translates into an action, waiting forever, doing nothing, drifting like a leaf in the wind, procrastination, evasion and dodging. Of course it is impossible that every event in life can be solved immediately, but the context of these statements refers to that of an action and this waiting forever syndrome, which often confuses many people into believing that those who take action, respectively, those who don't get things done, are those who are somehow impatient, overly ambitious and unable to wait. Well, such can never be the case. Although presumptuousness does exist, It should never be confused for taking action because the human being should remember at all times that her material lifetime is limited, regardless of if she lives for 20, 30, 50, 70, 500, 1,000, 7,000, or even 77,000 material years. Truly, evolution in no wise happens from simply retaining knowledge because such a featuring is impossible for any human being, including the pleasure and all other human life forms in this or any other universe, because evolution only comes from application, respectively, action, doing, motion, swelling, being, moving, achieving, arriving, success, and so forth. Evolution can never and never occur from only a lack of information, which is why human beings who fail to perform manual labor are human beings who fall behind in light of those who make active, continuous efforts to experience and examine the life, and thus, to truly take life by the horns, and experience life regardless of circumstance. Truly, evolutive steps answer to the law of 7, respectively, the law of completion, and if completion, resolution, death, etc. did not exist, then there would be absolutely no reason to evolve. If relative perfection stages, respectively, goals, objectives, finish lines, achievements, resolutions, solutions and so forth did not exist as completion, then there would be absolutely no reason to even learn, let alone evolve. Truly, evolution as a whole would be completely illogical if life had been all about learning, receiving, absorbing etc. without any giving, respectively, without any action, activity, doing etc. because absorption and compression, much like the Big Bang, was only a precursor cause before the actual effects of the primal bang erupted. Therefore there cannot only exist positive without negative or negative without positive, which must never and never be confused for good and bad. Actually it must be strictly said that confusion of positive as good or negative as bad remains that of only primitive, belief-based thinking, which in no wise represents the truth, because truly, in the absolute truth, positive and negative as one union is the true good and the true uprightness, love, peace, harmony, joy, freedom, might, power, success, resolution, evolution and truly, creational. It is the separation of the forces that is degenerate and evil, because these two belong inherently together as one, and never should it ever be confused for stupid earthling primitive philosophies of being half evil or half good etc., because such accounts to absolute nonsensical belief delusions that in no wise corresponds to the unifying bipolarity negative positive impulse idea of creational existence. So, it is to say that action is absolutely the way of evolution, and the human being should make it their top priority to do, to get and to go, and she who fails in doing this, fails and hinders their way of evolution. Truly, one cannot sit and wait forever, because every nanosecond poses opportunity for the evolution of consciousness. Truly, every single moment of life is worth living and worth experiencing, even the painful moments, and if the human being adjusts his her lens of life in this, truth, then she will truly become unstoppable, full of joy, love, and wonder in his her eyes that is uncontested by any material gain.